I only want to know if he's all right.
Perhaps these older nuns could help us with some of the details.
I don't think that's going to be possible.
Why not?
You're a journalist.
I used to be.
Martin's a Roman Catholic.
Yes, well, no, I used to be. My guess is that Anthony was adopted and sent to America.
I think I would like to go. I'd like to know if Anthony ever thought of me. I've thought of him every day.
Welcome back to Kermode Uncut. You know, there's an ongoing debate we've been having here for quite some time about what effect, if any, film critics can have on the box office of a film. I've always argued that film critics cannot kill a movie. No matter what they say, it doesn't actually affect the box office. A few years ago, back in 2010, there was a YouGov poll which concluded two things which were equally scary. The first was that I am apparently the most trusted film critic in the UK, which is worrying enough. More frightening was the fact that less than 3% of the people polled trusted me. So that tells you something about how much moviegoers actually care about what critics think. Anyway, a row kicked off in the last week or so over in America, which has sort of brought this whole debate into focus. It surrounds the film Philomena, which I rather like and is being seen as an awards contender. A lot of people really like the film. Anyway, there was a review of the film in the New York Post by a guy called Kyle Smith, which is a one-star panning. He hated the film. He basically complained that it was a hateful attack upon Catholics, said you'd never make this kind of film about Judaism or Islam, and he really, really didn't like the movie, and he thought it was somehow, an attack on a religion. The next thing that happened was the film company took out an advert in the newspapers quoting that review. They said, everybody loves Philomena. All the critics agree that it's absolutely brilliant. On Rotten Tomatoes, it's got like a 92% fresh rating, except for this one critic. And here's a copy of his review, and he really hated the film, and here's what he said. And then, beneath the excerpt from his review, they had a letter from Philomena Lee, because the story of the film is about Philomena Lee. And in her letter, she rebuts Kyle Smith's review, saying, you didn't understand it, but I forgive you for not understanding it. I hope other people will go and make up their own mind. He then published an article in the newspaper rebutting her rebuttal of his review, and so on, and so on. So what does this whole unseemly spat tell us? Well, it tells us two things. Firstly, it says, welcome to awards season. I mean, this is what happens in the run-up to awards. People start throwing mud around at each other. They do it in the press. It's really brutal and bloody nowadays. I mean, interestingly enough, behind Philomena is, of course, Harvey Weinstein, who was a guest on the Radio 5 live show that I do with Simon Mayo just last Friday. He was coming on to talk about the films that he's got as possible Oscar contenders. Of course, Philomena is one of them. And Harvey Weinstein is somebody whose name has often been connected with, shall we say, vigorous Oscar campaigning. But the other thing it proves, and this is rather more important, is there really is no such thing as a bad review. There is no review which cannot somehow be turned to the film's advantage. I mean, look what they've done. They've taken a review which is a one-star panning, and they've used it to promote the film, to put it on an advert to say, hey, this person disagrees. Why don't you come along and see the film and make up your mind for yourself? I once did a review of Sex and the City 2, in which I spent about 17 minutes telling everybody how terrible the film was. In the middle of the review, I started singing the Internationale. And comrades come rally. I'm not entirely sure why. Ever since then, many people have come up to me and said, I saw your terrible review of Sex and the City 2. I had to go and see the film to see if it was as bad as you said. See, in the end, critics only do the film industry a favour.